Patrick lay quietly on his familiar rock, the soft curve of its surface cradling him like a pillow made from the ocean itself. The night above Bikini Bottom was gentle, and though Patrick was fast asleep, his dream had only just begun to bloom. At first, there was only silence, a calm, endless quiet that felt as though the sea itself was holding its breath. Patrick floated in this stillness, surrounded by nothing, yet perfectly at peace. Slowly, he began to feel his body grow lighter. His arms, usually heavy and clumsy, felt as though they were filled with bubbles. His legs no longer pressed down against the sand. Instead, he rose softly, gently, as if the sea had decided to lift him into its great glowing sky. Patrick blinked in his dream, surprised but not worried. Everything felt natural, slow, and calm. The water around him shimmered with colors he had never noticed before, soft shades of lavender and deep velvety blue. Each ripple of water looked like a painter's brushstroke on an endless canvas. The sea wasn't dark tonight. It was glowing, as though it had swallowed starlight and let it shine from within. Patrick spread his arms wide, wobbling in the water, but instead of tumbling, he floated even higher. Tiny streams of bubbles slipped out from under his arms and drifted past his face. He giggled softly, the sound muffled but bright, like a child who had just discovered something magical. I'm flying, but under the water, Patrick thought dreamily. Or maybe I'm floating. Or maybe I'm just light. His thoughts wandered slowly, as if they too were adrift, carried by the ocean's gentle current. Above him, great glowing jellyfish drifted lazily, their long tendrils trailing behind them like ribbons in the water. They moved so gracefully that Patrick almost forgot to breathe. Each one gave off a faint light, soft blues, pale pinks, glowing violets, that blended together into a dreamy watercolor sky. The jellyfish pulsed in rhythm, like lanterns swaying in the breeze of a festival that only existed in his imagination. Patrick floated among them, staring up in wonder. I'm a floating star, he whispered, his voice echoing gently in the water. A big pink star in the middle of the sea. The thought made him smile, wide and innocent, as though he had discovered a great truth about himself. As he rose higher, the water seemed to change texture. It no longer felt like something he was swimming through. Instead, it wrapped around him like a soft blanket, thick and warm, holding him steady in its embrace. He felt safe, carried, and calm, like a small child tucked in tightly for sleep. The world around him moved in slow motion. Tiny fish swam past, their silver bodies glinting with reflected light, but even they seemed unhurried. They looked at Patrick curiously, but without fear, as if they recognized that he too belonged in this peaceful moment. Their tails swished gently, pushing them forward like leaves drifting across the surface of a pond. Patrick lifted his hand and tried to catch one of the glowing bubbles drifting past. The bubble rested against his fingertip for just a moment before floating away, always just out of reach. He giggled again, not upset, only amused. The bubbles didn't belong to him. They belonged to the dream. His eyes wandered upward once more, following the trail of light. Above him, the ocean ceiling sparkled as though the stars had sunk into the water itself. Some of the stars seemed close enough to touch, shimmering softly, as if waiting for him to arrive. Others twinkled far in the distance, faint but steady, promising that there was always more to discover, always more to dream about. Patrick stretched out his arms and let himself drift in a slow spin. His round body rotated gently, and for a moment he imagined he was one of the jellyfish, pulsing softly, glowing quietly and floating wherever the current carried him. The deeper he drifted into the dream, the more peaceful he felt. His thoughts no longer tangled together in silly knots, as they often did. They spread out slowly, lazily, one after the other, until his mind was like a soft ribbon unrolling. He didn't have to chase his thoughts. They simply floated with him, drifting in every direction like gentle bubbles. He remembered faintly the feeling of lying on his rock, how heavy and solid it was beneath him. Now that weight was gone. Here in the dream, he was no longer tied down. He was a starfish without a rock, without gravity, without even the pull of the tide, just drifting, drifting, drifting. Each moment grew longer, stretched out like the horizon at dusk. Patrick could hear a hum in the water, though he couldn't tell where it came from. It was low and steady, like the sound of a seashell pressed to the ear. It wasn't a song exactly, but it carried the same soothing rhythm, the same promise of calm. The hum seemed to wrap around him, filling the spaces where silence once lived. Patrick sighed, and the sigh itself turned into bubbles that drifted away from him. He followed them with his eyes until they disappeared into the glowing purple-blue around him. The bubbles reminded him of clouds drifting high above the water's surface, but softer, slower, more delicate. Patrick whispered again, though he didn't know why. "I'm a floating star." This time he closed his eyes as he said it, letting the words carry him deeper into the glow. Patrick's words melted into the water, soft and round, drifting away like bubbles that refused to burst. His eyes, still closed, allowed the dream to paint its own pictures for him. He didn't need to look. He didn't even need to move. All he needed was the weightless feeling of drifting, of letting the sea carry him wherever it wished. A soft current brushed against his side, warm and silky, nudging him gently as if to say, "Come along now, follow me." Patrick turned slowly in the water, opening his eyes again, and found himself surrounded by tiny specks of light. At first, he thought they were stars that had fallen into the sea, but when he looked closer, he saw they were small creatures, tiny, glowing plankton, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of them. They sparkled with every movement, their light pulsing gently, like 1,000 tiny heartbeats. Patrick reached out his stubby arm, brushing through the glowing cloud, and the plankton swirled around him in spirals of pale green and silver. They didn't scatter or hide. They welcomed him, twirling around his body as though he were part of the dance. Patrick giggled softly, the sound echoing in the still water. I'm glowing too." He stretched both arms wide, spinning slowly, and the plankton spun with him, leaving trails of light that lingered in the water like glowing ribbons. For a moment, Patrick looked like a star at the center of its own little galaxy, light swirling around him in soft, endless patterns. The sight made him feel calm and proud and very, very sleepy. He let out a big yawn, bubbles streaming from his mouth, but he didn't stop drifting. He let the plankton guide him upward toward the glowing jellyfish he had seen before. The jellyfish hovered above, silent guardians of the dream. Their bell-shaped bodies pulsed gently, their glow soft but steady. Patrick floated toward them without fear. One of the jellyfish lowered itself slightly as if bending down to greet him. Its long ribbon-like tendrils shimmered faintly, curling and uncurling like strands of silk. Patrick tilted his head, wide-eyed but calm. "Hello," he whispered, his voice small in the dream. "I'm a starfish. What are you?" The jellyfish didn't answer with words. Instead, it pulsed with light. One long glow, then 2 short flickers, then another long one. Patrick didn't understand, but he felt the meaning anyway. It was a greeting, a welcome, a gentle reminder that he was safe here. Patrick reached out with both hands, and the jellyfish let one of its tendrils brush against his palm. To his surprise, it didn't sting. Instead, it felt like the softest thread, smooth and warm, like sea silk spun just for him. He smiled, eyes drooping slightly as the glow seeped into him, filling him with an even deeper calm. "Pretty," Patrick whispered, and the jellyfish pulsed again as if pleased. The plankton still swirled gently around him, weaving between the jellyfish, making the dream glow brighter and brighter. But it wasn't a harsh light. It was soft, like moonlight shining through curtains. Every shape, every ripple, every color was gentle, wrapping Patrick in comfort. As he floated higher, more jellyfish joined, each one drifting gracefully into place. They didn't crowd him. They didn't surround him too tightly. They simply glided nearby, their glowing bodies moving in harmony, as though they were guiding him toward something important. Patrick yawned again, his eyelids heavy, but he didn't want to miss the show. It's like fireworks, but underwater, and slow. His words slurred as he spoke, his voice fading into the dream. The jellyfish pulsed brighter, and Patrick felt himself rising again, carried upward not by his own effort, but by the rhythm of their glowing dance. He stretched out his arms once more and whispered, almost to himself, "Up, up, up." The water around him seemed endless, but not empty. Every inch was alive with the gentle color, with motion so soft it was almost invisible. The higher he drifted, the quieter everything became. Even the hum he had heard earlier softened, stretching into silence, until only the slow, pulsing rhythm of the jellyfish remained. It was like being cradled in the world's largest lullaby. Patrick's body swayed in the current, his arms limp, his eyes only half open now. His mind was slowing down, too, thoughts growing heavier, stretching out like waves that took longer and longer to reach the shore. He imagined himself not as a starfish, but as a real star glowing softly in the great ocean sky. He imagined looking down on Bikini Bottom from above, watching his friends sleep in their homes, watching the sea rest quietly around them. He felt safe, not only for himself, but for everyone he loved. A soft smile spread across his face. "I'll keep watch. I'll shine, so no one feels alone." His words trailed off, lost in another yawn. The plankton swirled once more as if agreeing. The jellyfish pulsed gently, forming a slow circle around him. Together they made a constellation, with Patrick at its center. He was the brightest star in this dream sky, glowing gently, peacefully, drifting higher and higher into the endless calm. And with each soft pulse of light, Patrick felt himself slipping deeper into his dream. Patrick floated in the circle of light, his body rising and falling gently with the current, as if the sea itself was rocking him to sleep. The jellyfish glowed in slow pulses, their tendrils drifting like ribbons in the water, and the plankton continued to swirl lazily, painting glowing trails that lingered before fading into the purple blue of the ocean. Patrick's eyes were half closed, heavy, but he fought the urge to sleep inside his dream. He wanted to see where it would carry him. He wanted to drift just a little higher. The circle of jellyfish shifted slowly, opening a pathway upward. Patrick felt a soft tug on his body, like invisible hands guiding him through. The current pulled him into the center of the path, and the glowing lights above formed a tunnel, a long, shining corridor through the dark. He gasped softly, his voice muffled into bubbles. It's like a rainbow, but made of water." And in truth, it did look like that. The jellyfish lined the walls of the tunnel, glowing in soft colors, roses and violets, pale yellows and gentle greens. Their light stretched far above, bending like an arch, until the tunnel seemed endless. Patrick drifted forward, his arms open wide as though he were flying through a dream sky. Each pulse of the jellyfish sent a wave of light rippling through the corridor, and Patrick's body glowed as he passed, like a pink lantern carried by the sea. He giggled softly. I think I'm in a parade, and I'm the float." The thought tickled him, but instead of breaking the calm, it only deepened it. The idea was silly, yes, but gentle, harmless, and comforting. He pictured himself as a giant balloon in the Bikini Bottom parade, floating slowly through the water while his friends waved up at him with sleepy smiles. The tunnel narrowed slightly and the current slowed, almost as if the sea wanted Patrick to take his time, to move carefully, to notice every glowing detail around him. He brushed his hand against the edge of the tunnel, and the jellyfish rippled in response, their lights shimmering brighter just for a moment. "Sorry," Patrick whispered. "I didn't mean to poke you." But the jellyfish didn't mind. Their glow returned to its steady rhythm, calm and unbothered, as though they were reassuring him that he was welcome here, that nothing could go wrong in this dream. Patrick's eyelids drooped again, heavier now. He let out another long sigh, his mouth opening wide into a yawn. Bubbles streamed upward, shimmering in the glow, each one carrying a tiny reflection of his face. He watched them drift until they blended into the soft ceiling of light above. The tunnel stretched on, but Patrick wasn't in a hurry. He moved as slowly as the jellyfish, as calmly as the drifting plankton. His thoughts came and went like waves lapping gently at the shore. "I like it here," he whispered. His voice was quiet, soft, almost as if it wasn't meant for anyone but the dream itself. "It's so floaty." The tunnel opened wider again, and Patrick found himself drifting into a chamber of light. It was vast, round and glowing, like the inside of a seashell lit from within. The jellyfish floated around the edges of the chamber, glowing brighter now, filling the space with gentle radiance. Patrick drifted into the center of the chamber, slowly spinning in place. His arms flopped loosely at his sides, his legs kicking lazily. He felt like he was the center of a music box, slowly turning while the world around him played its silent lullaby. A new current drifted in, cooler this time, brushing gently across his face. Patrick shivered slightly, not from fear, but from the strange sensation of the water changing. The cool current carried with it a faint sparkle, like dust caught in sunlight. Tiny glimmers swirled around him, settling into his skin, into his arms, into his chest. Patrick blinked slowly. I'm glowing more." And he was. The glow from the plankton, the jellyfish, and the dream itself seemed to sink into him now, filling him from the inside out. His round body radiated soft light, faint at first, then steady, then calm. He was no longer just floating in the glow. He was part of it. The jellyfish pulsed brighter, almost like they were celebrating. The chamber filled with waves of gentle light, flowing outward in ripples, as though Patrick's glow had joined theirs. For a moment, the chamber looked like a living star with Patrick at its heart. Patrick tilted his head back, letting the light wash over him. "I'm a real star now." His voice trailed off into a sigh, his body limp in the current. The glow dimmed slowly, returning to its calm rhythm. The jellyfish drifted quietly, their tendrils curling and uncurling as if they too were drifting into sleep. The plankton swirled more lazily now, their dance slowing until they simply floated in the water, like dust settling at the bottom of a dream. Patrick yawned once more, eyes heavy, vision soft. He didn't resist. He didn't question. He simply let himself drift in the chamber of light, his body glowing faintly, his thoughts slower than ever, each one stretching out like a lullaby note that refused to end. And in the stillness of the chamber, Patrick whispered again, as if speaking to the sea itself, "I'll keep shining, just a little longer." The water hummed softly in return, holding him gently, rocking him deeper into the dream. The chamber of light cradled Patrick like a dream within a dream. He floated in the center, his arms loose at his sides, his glow pulsing softly in rhythm with the jellyfish surrounding him. Everything moved slowly, gently, so slow that it felt like time itself was drifting to sleep. Patrick's eyelids fluttered, but he kept them open just enough to watch the glow ripple outward. The chamber walls shimmered with waves of pale lavender and silver, each one rolling like calm tides. He didn't need to move. He didn't need to speak. All he needed was to be here, glowing, floating, shining quietly. A soft current pressed against his back, nudging him upward again. Patrick tilted his head, blinking sleepily. "Oh, we're going higher," he mumbled. His words came out heavy, drowsy, stretching into bubbles that rose ahead of him. The jellyfish drifted with him, guiding him through another passage. This one was narrower, darker, but Patrick wasn't afraid. The glow from his own body lit the way, reflecting off the walls of the passage like soft lantern light. Every movement of his arm left a trail of sparkle in the water, and Patrick giggled faintly. "I'm here. Look, I'm sparkly." The corridor opened again, and Patrick gasped softly. Not from surprise, but from wonder. Before him stretched an endless field of light. It was not a chamber this time, but an open ocean sky filled with drifting stars. Some looked like plankton, some like jellyfish, some like glowing dust. But together they made the sea look like a galaxy. The horizon disappeared, swallowed by twinkling points that went on forever. Patrick drifted forward, eyes wide, though his body was heavy with sleep. He whispered, "It's so big." The stars around him seemed to respond, twinkling a little brighter. One star drifted closer, glowing warmer than the rest. It was small, no bigger than a seashell, but its light was golden and steady. The star hovered near Patrick's chest, as though it wanted to be near his glow. Patrick smiled sleepily. "Hi, little star. You can stay with me." The star pulsed gently, circling him once before settling near his shoulder. Its glow warmed him. Not hot, but soft and comforting, like the blanket he used on his rock. Patrick's eyelids lowered again. "Now I'm not alone," he whispered. More stars drifted closer, surrounding him in a slow, lazy orbit. They didn't crowd him, but they stayed near, forming a constellation around his glowing body. Together, they looked like a family of lights, traveling slowly through the dream sea. Patrick's breathing slowed, deep and steady, bubbles rising in perfect rhythm. Each bubble shimmered in the light before vanishing into the distance. His mind, too, was quiet now. No wandering thoughts, no silly questions. Just calm, just stillness, just the feeling of being carried by stars. The current slowed, and Patrick stopped drifting forward. He hung weightless in the middle of the galaxy, the stars glowing all around him. His head tilted slightly, his mouth open in another long yawn. The yawn became a sigh, and the sigh became stillness. Patrick's glow flickered softly, steady but gentle, like a night light that never went out. He no longer needed to whisper, no longer needed to name what he saw. The dream was carrying him now, deeper, slower, into the heart of sleep. The jellyfish remained nearby, pulsing faintly, like guardians of the galaxy sea. The plankton swirled lazily, dimming until they looked like faint dust in the water. The golden star at Patrick's shoulder flickered once, then settled into a slow, steady rhythm, as if matching the pace of his breaths. The ocean's hum returned, low and endless. It wasn't a song with notes. It was a sound that wrapped around Patrick like a blanket, a lullaby made of silence and motion. He leaned into it, sinking deeper into stillness, his body almost melting into the glow. His final thought drifted in and out of his mind like a whisper. I'm a starfish, a floating starfish, shining, shining. The words slipped away, dissolving into the hum. His eyes closed completely, his body limp, his glow steady but soft. He was no longer just Patrick, no longer just a starfish. In the dream, he had become part of the sea of stars, another light in the endless ocean sky, floating peacefully without end. The dream held him there, rocking him gently, wrapping him in warmth, until even the thought of waking seemed far, far away. And so Patrick drifted on, the floating starfish, glowing softly in his own quiet galaxy, carried forever by the slow, endless lullaby of the sea. Patrick's dream carried him gently onward, past the glowing stars and drifting jellyfish, into a quieter part of the ocean. The light dimmed slowly, as though the dream itself was asking him to rest his eyes. The glowing plankton faded into the distance. The jellyfish floated away one by one, and the water grew calm, still and hushed. Patrick drifted lower, his body turning lazily in the water. His arms moved only when the current nudged them, his eyes opening just enough to see the sandy floor beneath him. It stretched out like a great empty meadow, soft and pale, with gentle ripples across its surface where the tides had once touched. At the center of the sandy floor sat something large, round, and pale, a seashell. But not just any seashell. It was enormous, larger than Patrick himself, its curved surface shimmering faintly in the dim water. Its ridges spiraled outward like the arms of time, smooth and glowing with a quiet, pearly light. The seashell looked as though it had been waiting for him, resting there for ages, untouched by anything else. Patrick blinked slowly. Ooh, big shell. His voice echoed softly in the water as though the sea wanted to keep his words safe. He floated closer, curiosity moving him even though his body felt so heavy with sleep. The seashell did not move, but the glow along its ridges brightened faintly as he approached, pulsing in a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Patrick reached out and touched the shell with one hand. It was cool, smooth, and strong beneath his fingers. He pressed his palm against it, and to his surprise, the seashell hummed. The sound was low and deep, vibrating through his hand and into his arm, then into his chest. It wasn't a voice yet, just a hum, steady and calming, like the ocean itself breathing. Patrick giggled sleepily. It tickles. He pressed both hands against the seashell, leaning his head close. The hum grew stronger, wrapping around him, filling the silence with something warm and gentle. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the sound sink into him, letting it steady his thoughts. Then the seashell spoke. Its voice was soft but deep, echoing as though it came from inside the ocean's oldest cave. Hello, Patrick. Patrick's eyes widened, though only a little, his head tilted in slow surprise. You talk? The seashell's ridges glowed faintly, brighter with each word. Yes, Patrick, I have been waiting for you. Patrick blinked, his mouth falling open in a sleepy smile. Waiting for me? But I was just floating. The seashell's hum deepened, the sound carrying a kindness that made Patrick's eyelids heavier. Dreams have a way of guiding us where we need to go. You floated here, and now you have found me. Patrick scratched the top of his head, his movements slow and clumsy in the water. I guess I'm lucky. The seashell chuckled softly, or perhaps it was only the vibration of its hum changing. Not luck, Patrick. You belong here tonight. You needed a place to rest and to listen. Patrick tilted his head again, blinking slowly. Listen to... what? The seashell opened slightly, its curved lips parting with a sound like the sigh of the tide. Inside, the chamber glowed faintly with soft, golden light, shimmering like the last rays of sunset. To the ocean's voice, Patrick. To the sound that has always been here, even when you did not hear it. Press your ear to my shell, and you will understand. Patrick floated closer, pressing the side of his head against the smooth surface. The moment he did, the hum filled his ear completely. It was no longer just a vibration. It was a rhythm, steady and endless, like waves rolling in and out, like a song sung without words. His eyes closed. His breathing slowed. The sound was so calming that it felt like it was rocking him in a cradle. Patrick whispered without moving his head. I hear it. I hear the ocean. Yes, the seashell answered, its voice soft as the tide. That sound has always been with you. It is the ocean's heartbeat. It is the song that has watched over you since you were born. Patrick smiled faintly, his cheek pressed against the shell. It's so sleepy. Makes me want to yawn. And he did, his mouth stretching wide, bubbles floating lazily from his lips. The seashell's hum deepened, soothing him further. Then yawn, Patrick. Rest. Let the sound carry you. You are safe here. Patrick let his body sink gently into the sand beside the seashell. His arms flopped to his sides, his eyelids heavy, though he still tried to keep them open, just enough to see the glow of the shell. He didn't want to miss the light, or the sound, or the feeling of being held by the ocean's voice. But already the hum was wrapping around him, like a lullaby, soft and endless, pulling him deeper into the dream. Patrick rested against the great seashell, his body heavy and limp on the sand, his cheek pressed softly to its smooth surface. The hum filled him, low and steady, like a song too old for words. It moved through him with each breath, calming, steadying, loosening every thought in his mind. The seashell's glow flickered faintly, then steadied again, as if it were breathing alongside him. Patrick, the seashell murmured, its voice as deep as the tide. The ocean has many stories. If you stay still, if you listen, you will hear them all. Patrick's eyelids drooped halfway. His voice was soft, slurred, drifting. Stories? Like bedtime stories? Yet, the seashell answered, a faint chuckle rippling through its hum. Stories that belong to the sea. They are gentle, Patrick. They will help you rest. Patrick nodded slowly, his cheek rubbing against the shell. Okay. I like stories. The seashell pulsed faintly and the hum deepened. The sound seemed to stretch into pictures in Patrick's dream, slow, quiet pictures painted with water and light. Once, the seashell began, long before you floated here, the waves carried a pearl across the ocean floor. The pearl rolled and rolled, carried by the tides never stopping. It passed coral gardens and dark caves. It rested in sandy hollows and was lifted again by the currents. The pearl never worried where it was going. It only drifted. And do you know what, Patrick? Patrick's lips parted in a slow smile, his voice muffled against the shell. What? The pearl was always exactly where it needed to be. No matter how far it drifted, no matter how many tides it followed, the sea carried it to the right place. It never had to hurry. It never had to try. It only had to trust the waves. Patrick sighed, the sound trailing into bubbles. I like that. I don't like hurrying. The seashell hummed gently, pleased. Then don't hurry, Patrick. Drift like the pearl. Let the tide carry you. Patrick's breathing slowed. He pressed his ear tighter against the shell, eager for more. The glow of the seashell brightened softly, filling the water around them with golden light, and the voice continued. Another story, it whispered, is about a grain of sand. So small, Patrick, so tiny, it thought it didn't matter at all. But the sea carried it too. It tumbled with the waves, spun in circles, lifted and dropped, until one day it became part of a great beach. And when the moon shone down, the whole beach sparkled like silver dust. That little grain of sand was part of the sparkle. Without it, the beach would not have been the same. Patrick's eyes closed halfway. He mumbled, his voice slow as a tide. I'm kind of like that sand, little, but sparkly. The seashell's hum deepened warmly. Yes, Patrick, you are part of the sparkle, too. Silence drifted between them for a while, but it wasn't empty. The hum filled the stillness, rising and falling like waves on a quiet shore. Patrick's breaths matched it perfectly, long and deep, as if his body had given itself to the rhythm. The seashell continued, slower now, softer, as though it didn't want to disturb his drowsiness. There was once a tiny bubble drifting in the sea. The bubble was clear and light and small. It rose and rose, not knowing what it would find. The bubble never pushed, never forced. It simply let go, and the ocean lifted it. You know what happened, Patrick? Patrick yawned against the shell, his words barely a whisper. What happened? The bubble reached the surface, and there it saw the moon. For the first time, it saw its own reflection in the moonlight. The bubble understood that it, too, was part of the night's beauty, small but shining. Patrick smiled faintly, his eyes finally closing. His words were soft as a sigh. I like bubbles. They make me happy. The seashell's glow flickered again, steady, calm, unchanging. Then be like the bubble, Patrick. Light, free, carried upward, always finding the glow. Patrick curled slightly on the sand, arms tucked close to his chest, his body as still as the ocean floor itself. The hum filled him, deeper now, slower, lulling him further into his dream. The seashell did not rush, and neither did the ocean. Its voice moved like tides, one word, then another, then a long pause, leaving a space for Patrick's thoughts to fade into silence. Do you hear them, Patrick? It asked finally, its voice low. The waves, the pearls, the sand, the bubble? Patrick murmured, his voice barely audible. I hear them. Good, the seashell replied. Then you are listening to the ocean's memory. It is here, always, for you to rest in. And Patrick, glowing faintly in the golden light, drifted deeper into the seashell's song. The seashell's glow dimmed and brightened in a gentle rhythm like a lantern swinging softly in the deep. Patrick lay against it, heavy and still, his breaths long and slow. Every rise and fall of his chest seemed to echo the seashell's hum, as if they were breathing together. The voice came again, deep and tender, flowing through the water. Patrick, the ocean has many treasures, but not the kind you can hold. They are treasures of quiet. Do you want to hear more? Patrick mumbled drowsily, his lips barely moving. More stories. The seashell chuckled, the sound rolling like a wave on the shore. Then listen. The hum shifted, deeper, slower, and new pictures began to form in Patrick's drifting mind. Once, in the stillest corner of the sea, there was a cave of light. Inside, crystals grew from the rocks. They did not shine brightly, not like the sun. They glowed softly, like dreams. The fish who passed through the cave would rest there, floating quietly in the pale glow, their eyes closing. The cave did not ask them to stay, but it gave them peace, and they always left calmer than before. Patrick's lips curled in a slow smile. Crystal Cave. Sounds sparkly. The seashell's voice warmed, pleased. Yes, Patrick. Sparkly but soft, like a dream that doesn't end. Patrick shifted against the shell, his arms curling tighter to his chest, as if he wanted to sink into the glow himself. And the seashell continued, its words spaced like the steady beat of a tide. Another time, there was a current that circled the ocean for many years. It carried leaves, shells, and bits of sea glass. Everything it carried became smooth and gentle. The leaves softened into nothing. The shells grew around, and the glass shone like jewels. The current never hurried. It only circled again and again, until everything it touched was made beautiful. Patrick's breathing grew slower. I like that current. Makes everything soft. Yes, Patrick. Even the hardest things become soft when the sea carries them long enough. The hum stretched, sinking deeper into silence before the seashell spoke again. There was also a whale, Patrick. A whale so old its song had echoed through the sea for centuries. The whale did not speak loudly. It did not shout. It sang slowly, a single note at a time, as if each note carried a dream. The fish who heard it would stop swimming, close their eyes, and drift. They knew they were safe while the song filled the sea. Patrick yawned, the sound bubbling softly through the water. I like whales. Big, sleepy singer. The seashell's hum deepened, carrying a note that seemed to echo the whale's song itself. Yes, Patrick. Whales are the ocean's lullabies. Patrick smiled faintly, already lost in the rhythm, his body heavier than before. His eyes barely opened now, and when they did, all he saw was the golden glow around him, blurred and soft. The seashell waited, humming quietly until Patrick's breath steadied once again. Then, with a voice even slower, it began to tell another secret. Do you know about the drifting kelp, Patrick? The long, gentle strands that rise and fall with the tide. They never fight the water. They sway, left, right, up, down, always moving but never struggling. The fish who hide among them feel safe. The kelp holds them softly, like arms wrapping around them. The kelp teaches us, do not resist the tide. Sway, and you will always find rest. Patrick's head tilted slightly against the seashell, as though he were already swaying in his dream. Sway. Yes, Patrick. Always swaying. The seashell let the silence linger again. The hum was now like a heartbeat, slow and steady, filling the space between words. Finally, it whispered, there is a place where the sea touches the sky, a horizon that never ends. When the sun sinks, the ocean turns silver and the stars appear above. That place belongs to every dreamer, Patrick. Anyone who drifts long enough can see it. And when they do, they know. There is no end to the sea, no end to the stars, and no end to the dreams that rest between them. Patrick's lips curved into a sleepy grin. His voice was barely more than a breath. No end. Just dreams. The seashell hummed once more, its glow softening until it felt like moonlight under the water. Patrick nestled closer, his body sinking deeper into rest, his mind filling with silver horizons, swaying kelp, and glowing caves. And the seashell, patient and timeless, whispered again, as though promising more stories yet to come. Yes, Patrick. No end at all. Only dreams. Patrick lay completely still now, curled gently against the seashell's glowing surface. His breaths came long and steady, rising and falling with the same rhythm as the hum inside the shell. It was hard to tell where Patrick ended and the seashell began, for their sounds seemed to blend, one heartbeat with another. The seashell spoke again, though its voice was softer than before, almost like a whisper hidden in the water. Patrick, you have listened well. You have heard the pearls, the sand, the bubbles, the currents, the whales, the kelp, and the horizon. You have heard the sea's memory. Now let me tell you one last secret. Patrick stirred faintly, his eyes half opening, but he didn't move. His voice was the faintest murmur. One more. The seashell's glow pulsed gently as though nodding. Its hum deepened, stretching the silence between each word. The ocean itself dreams, Patrick. Every wave, every tide, every ripple is part of its dream. When you close your eyes, when you let yourself float, you are drifting inside that dream. You don't need to think. You don't need to do. You only need to be, and the sea will dream for you. Patrick's lips curled in a tiny smile. His voice came slowly, almost slurred. I'm inside the ocean's dream. Yes, Patrick, the seashell answered, soft and certain. And the ocean never stops dreaming. The hum swelled faintly, wrapping Patrick like a blanket. He relaxed even further, his limbs loose, his head sinking against the shell. The glow around them flickered once, then steadied, calm as moonlight. The seashell waited a long while, its voice quiet now, giving Patrick's mind space to sink lower. Then it whispered, Do you feel how heavy your body is? The sand beneath you holds you gently. The water cradles you. You are safe here, safe to rest, safe to let go. Patrick let out a long breath, bubbles rising slowly from his lips. His eyes closed again, heavier than before. Safe. To rest. Yes, the seashell agreed. You are held, you are safe. Nothing more is needed. The hum slowed even further. It was no longer a song, but a vibration, like the slow heartbeat of the sea itself. Each pause between the seashell's words stretched longer and longer, until it felt like time itself was slowing. Patrick, let the tide carry you, like the pearl. Let yourself drift. Silence, only the hum. I like the sand. Become part of the sparkle. Silence again. Only Patrick's breathing, steady and calm. Like the bubble, rising to the moon. Light and free. Another long silence. Like the kelp, swaying. Always swaying. Patrick's body softened completely. His arms loosened. His face peaceful, his breath so deep, they seemed to ripple with the hum. The seashell's glow dimmed slightly, not fading away, but softening into the kind of light that belongs to dreams. Its voice grew fainter, drifting lower, almost merging with the water. Patrick, you are the dream now. You are the quiet. You are the glow. Patrick didn't answer. His mouth was curved in the faintest smile, but his body was motionless, lost to the seashell's rhythm. The hum deepened one last time, steady, final, like the closing of a lullaby. Rest now, Patrick. The sea is dreaming you to sleep. The seashell stopped speaking. Its voice dissolved into nothing, leaving only the hum, slower, quieter, fading with each moment, until it was impossible to tell if it was still there or if it had become part of Patrick's own heartbeat. Around them, the water was silent. The corals glowed faintly in the distance. Tiny bubbles drifted upward, vanishing into the deep. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. Patrick lay still against the shell, his chest rising and falling, so slowly that the motion was barely visible. His dream had folded over him like a soft tide, carrying him further away, deeper and deeper, into the sea's endless quiet. The seashell glowed once more, just once, then dimmed into the silence. And all that remained was stillness. The ocean around Patrick was still and silent. He lay curled by the seashell, heavy in his dream, when a soft shimmer touched the edge of his closed eyes. It was faint at first, like a glimmer of moonlight seeping through deep water. Slowly the shimmer grew, pulsing gently into the distance, until Patrick stirred and opened his eyes just a little. What he saw made him smile in a sleepy, half-dreaming way. Floating toward him were jellyfish, dozens of them, glowing like tiny lanterns in the dark sea. Their bodies pulsed softly, round and translucent, each one carrying a gentle light inside. Some glowed blue like pieces of sky drifting underwater. Others shimmered pink, as soft as seashells. A few flickered gold, like little sparks of sun captured beneath the waves. Patrick blinked slowly, his smile widening. The jellyfish, are having a party. But it wasn't a loud party, it was a quiet one. A parade. The jellyfish drifted in long, slow lines, their tendrils trailing behind them like ribbons. They moved together, but not in a hurry. They floated with the rhythm of the sea, pulsing gently, then resting, then pulsing again. The light from their bodies painted the water in soft, shifting colors like stars moving in a night sky. Patrick lifted himself slightly, his arms stretching out as if he wanted to reach for them. But he didn't rush. He didn't need to. The jellyfish drifted toward him, surrounding him in their glowing calm. The first jellyfish floated close, its body glowing pale blue. Patrick giggled softly and whispered, "Hi there, floaty balloon." The jellyfish pulsed once, slowly as though answering, and drifted past him. Another followed, this one glowing pink, and then another golden, until Patrick was surrounded on all sides by their shimmering light. He turned in a slow circle, his arms out wide as though he wanted to catch the glow. But the jellyfish did not need to be caught. They were already carrying him, already drawing him into their soft, endless parade. Patrick began to walk along the seabed, each step slow and dreamy. His feet pressed into the sand, leaving prints that faded immediately as the water shifted over them. Around him, the jellyfish floated in perfect calm, forming a gentle path for him to follow. Above, the water seemed to glow with their light. Below, the sand sparkled faintly, as though reflecting the jellyfish's colors. Patrick felt as if he were walking through a dream made of stars. The jellyfish pulsed again, in unison now, their lights glowing brighter for a moment before dimming. The rhythm was steady, like a heartbeat, like a drum far away. Patrick slowed his steps to match them, one step for every glow, one breath for every pulse. He whispered, almost to himself, "I'm in the parade too. I'm part of it." The jellyfish did not speak, but they did not need to. Their glowing rhythm was enough. It was a song without sound, a dance without words. As Patrick walked, the jellyfish gathered closer. They circled around him, their bodies swaying in the water, their tendrils brushing lightly against the current. Patrick giggled again when one tendril touched his arm, but he didn't pull away. The touch was soft, like a feather, gentle enough to lull him deeper into calm. Slowly the parade stretched further. More jellyfish appeared out of the distance, drifting into the glow. Dozens became hundreds, each one glowing in its own color, its own rhythm, until the water was filled with soft, pulsing light. Patrick tilted his head back, his eyes wide in dreamy wonder. "It's like a sky," but under the sea. The jellyfish pulsed again, and Patrick felt the rhythm move through him. His body swayed gently without him realizing, his arms drifting at his sides. He was no longer just walking in the parade. He was part of its movement, part of its glow. The water felt warmer now, touched by the jellyfish's light. Every time one passed near him, Patrick felt softer, calmer, sleepier, as though each glow carried a piece of rest. And still the parade moved forward, slowly, endlessly, with Patrick among them, another dreamer, drifting in their quiet rhythm. The jellyfish glowed around Patrick, their lights flickering in soft, patient patterns. They seemed to breathe together, rising and falling, brightening and dimming, as if the entire ocean had slowed into their rhythm. Patrick let himself sway with them, his round body rocking gently back and forth. His arms drifted at his sides, floating as though they belonged to the water more than to him. He giggled softly, his voice bubbling into the quiet. "I'm a jellyfish, too." As if to answer, a group of jellyfish circled close, their tendrils curling gracefully around him. They didn't touch, not quite, but their glow wrapped him in soft color. Blue shimmered on his left, pink drifted on his right, and gold pulsed above his head. Patrick blinked slowly, his eyelids heavy, his smile dreamy. The jellyfish pulsed again, and this time, Patrick moved his body to match them. When they glowed brighter, he raised his arms. When they dimmed, he lowered them. It was a dance, but not the kind that needed steps. It was a drift, a sway, a letting go. The parade stretched on, more jellyfish appearing in the distance like lanterns being lit one by one. They filled the water with soft, glowing lines, weaving together into patterns too slow to notice at first. Patrick tilted his head, watching the lights pulse in ripples. The pattern was soothing. One line would glow, then another, like waves of light moving across the sea. The longer Patrick watched, the slower he felt inside, as though the rhythm were breathing for him. His chest rose when the jellyfish brightened, and it fell when they dimmed. His body had become part of their song. He whispered drowsily, "It's like the stars are swimming." The jellyfish pulsed in answer, and Patrick let his eyes drift half shut. The lights blurred together now, softening into shapes that looked less like jellyfish and more like floating galaxies. Each glow stretched into a circle, each circle into a spiral, and the spiral spun slowly, endlessly. Patrick reached out with one hand as if he could touch the glowing spirals, but his hand passed through the water, leaving only ripples. Still, he laughed gently. Slippery stars. The jellyfish floated closer. Their tendrils brushed the sand, stirring it just enough to lift tiny clouds of dust. The glowing dust swirled into the water, drifting like golden mist. Patrick walked through it slowly, each step leaving a trail of sparkles behind him. The jellyfish swam through the dust as well, their bodies glowing brighter when they passed, as if feeding on the shimmer. Patrick's eyes widened again in wonder. "Ooh, look at that. Shiny, shiny parade." The jellyfish pulsed once more, their glow brighter than before, and Patrick felt it pass through him like a wave. His arms floated higher, his body lighter, as though the glow itself had carried him. He began to float a little above the sand, drifting with the jellyfish without trying. His body bobbed gently in the water, rising and falling in time with theirs. The parade continued, stretching endlessly into the dark. Yet there was no fear in the darkness, only calm. The jellyfish filled it with light, enough to guide Patrick step by step, glow by glow. Above, the jellyfish formed a line that curved into an arch, glowing like a doorway made of stars. Patrick drifted beneath it, his mouth open in awe. It's like a castle, but all floaty. On the other side, the jellyfish gathered into circles, spinning slowly as they glowed. Patrick floated into the middle of one, and the circle closed around him like a gentle embrace. He spun with them, laughing softly, his body turning lazily in the water. He didn't feel like Patrick anymore. He didn't feel like a starfish or even a dreamer. He felt like a piece of the parade itself, one more light among the many, one more glow drifting through the sea. The rhythm carried him deeper. Glow, fade, glow, fade, glow, fade. Each pulse heavier, slower, like footsteps leading into sleep. Patrick's voice grew quieter, his words drifting away like bubbles. I think I could float forever. The jellyfish pulsed again, and Patrick closed his eyes, letting their glow wash over him completely. He swayed with them, carried by the parade, a dream inside a dream. Patrick floated with the jellyfish, his round body swaying gently as if he were just another glowing lantern in their slow parade. The colors around him deepened, soft blues, pale pinks, golden flickers, and began to weave together in new ways. The jellyfish weren't only glowing now, they were painting. Each pulse of light left trails in the water, lines that lingered longer than before. The lines curved, crossed, and circled until they began to form shapes. Patrick blinked slowly, his eyes heavy but wide enough to see the shimmering pictures unfolding before him. The first shape was a giant fish made of light. Its body stretched long and shimmering, each scale formed by a dozen jellyfish, pulsing in unison. The fish swam slowly through the water, its tail gliding behind, and Patrick gasped softly. Oh, a big, shiny fishy. The glowing fish swam around him once, its body bending gracefully, before dissolving back into scattered jellyfish. Patrick clapped his hands lazily, his voice warm with wonder. That was a good fish. Thank you, floaty friends. The jellyfish pulsed again, and this time, the light spun upward, forming the outline of a ship. Its sails glowed pale blue, and its hull shimmered gold. Patrick tilted his head, watching the glowing vessel drift above him as though it sailed across the ceiling of the sea. The ship moved slowly, its sails fluttering with each pulse of the jellyfish. Patrick whispered, I could ride that, all the way to Naptown. The ship's glow flickered, as though agreeing, before fading back into the water. The jellyfish shifted again, rearranging themselves into new shapes. Now they formed a cluster of stars twinkling softly in the spiral pattern. Patrick's eyes softened, his gaze dreamy. Like the bedtime sky, but under the sea. The spiral of stars spun slowly, and Patrick swayed with it, his body turning lazily in the water. Each light in the spiral pulsed at its own rhythm, like 1,000 tiny heartbeats. The sound wasn't there, but Patrick could feel it, a rhythm inside his chest. Then the lights changed again. The jellyfish gathered into a circle and pulsed together, brighter and brighter, until the water glowed like a rising sun. Patrick lifted his arms, basking in the warmth of the glow. Cozy sunshine, he mumbled, his voice almost a sigh. The glow dimmed, softening again, and the jellyfish floated back into their long, endless line. Patrick followed them, his steps slow and heavy as though he were half sleepwalking. The patterns faded into memory, but the calm they left lingered. Still, the jellyfish had more to show him. Ahead they gathered into long vertical lines, glowing one after another, top to bottom, like waterfalls of light. Patrick stopped to watch, his mouth opening in awe. It's raining, but not wet. The glowing waterfalls shifted side to side, swaying like kelp, before breaking apart and scattering again. Patrick chuckled softly. Sneaky jellyfish, making pictures. The parade went on, and Patrick felt himself drifting deeper. His body grew heavier, but at the same time lighter, as though the weight inside him was gone and only the water was carrying him forward. The jellyfish pulsed again, this time all together, and Patrick saw a final shape appear in the distance. It was a glowing star, larger than the rest, formed by dozens of jellyfish connected in perfect lines. The star shone brighter than anything else, filling the water with golden light. Patrick's eyes softened, his lids half closed, his voice tender. "Oh, my star." The glowing star drifted slowly forward, leading the parade. Patrick followed without thinking, his steps slow, his body swaying. He felt as though he had always been following the star, as though it had been waiting for him in his dreams. The jellyfish kept their steady rhythm. Glow, fade, glow, fade. Each pulse guided him further, carried him deeper, until the star's light filled his vision. Patrick sighed, his words fading like bubbles. "I think I'll follow forever." And the jellyfish, silent and patient, carried him onward, painting the water with their endless glowing dreams. Patrick kept following the glowing star made of jellyfish. His steps were slow, heavy yet gentle, as though each movement carried him deeper into a dream he didn't want to wake from. The star pulsed with golden light, and each time it glowed, Patrick's body relaxed even more. His arms sagged at his sides, his eyelids fluttered, and his round pink cheeks seemed to soften like melting wax. The jellyfish around him formed wide arcs, their tendrils trailing like ribbons. They pulsed in rhythm, each glow rippling outward in a wave of light. Patrick felt the rhythm echo in his chest, his heart slowing to match it. Thump, glow, thump, glow. His breath synced to the same gentle pace, in and out, carried by the pulse of the parade. He was no longer walking. He was floating. His feet barely touched the sandy floor, and his arms drifted out to the sides, as though he were being held up by the glow itself. His mind, usually full of silly and scattered thoughts, was quiet now. The parade had carried those thoughts away, dissolved them into soft colors and swaying shapes. Patrick blinked slowly, and in the glow ahead he saw himself reflected. For a moment he wasn't sure if it was a mirror or another dream. The jellyfish had arranged themselves into the outline of a starfish, pink, glowing and round, with arms spread wide. It floated toward him gently, pulsing with the same rhythm as the others. Patrick tilted his head, watching the glowing double of himself drift closer. It wasn't exact, but it was close enough. Its shape was familiar, its warmth comforting. When it reached him, the glowing starfish circled once, then pressed softly against his chest. Patrick closed his eyes, hugging it without even lifting his arms. The glow sank into him, filling him from the inside. His body tingled gently as though starlight had moved into his skin. The jellyfish's rhythm was no longer around him, it was inside him. Every beat of light felt like a heartbeat, every glow like a breath. Patrick whispered, almost too soft to hear, "I'm part of the parade now." The jellyfish didn't answer, but their glow brightened, wrapping around him like a blanket. The star that had been leading them shimmered more brightly than ever, and the entire parade seemed to pause, waiting. Patrick drifted upward slightly, lifted by the rhythm of the glowing swarm. His body stretched out like theirs, arms wide, eyes closed, drifting in perfect stillness. It was as if the ocean had decided he was one of them. Time slipped away. Patrick no longer knew how long he had been floating. Minutes, hours, maybe longer. The glowing jellyfish moved in slow spirals, weaving around him, their tendrils brushing against him like soft threads. Every touch sent him deeper, loosening him further until he was almost weightless. The jellyfish continued their show, painting pictures around him. Another fish, another ship, another spiral of stars. But now Patrick was part of those pictures. His body glowed faintly pink, pulsing with the same rhythm, blending with the light. When the ship drifted by, he was one of its sails. When the stars spun above, he was one of their twinkles. When the glowing fish swam past, he was a scale on its side. Patrick was no longer just watching the parade. He was the parade. He smiled faintly in his sleep, lips curved gently. As though some part of him knew the beauty of it all, his breathing slowed even further, so calm it seemed like the water itself was breathing for him. The jellyfish pulsed one final time, brighter than ever, their glow spreading through the water until it felt like the entire ocean was wrapped in starlight. The glowing star that led them floated above Patrick, lowering itself until it rested right above his forehead. The light seeped into him, warm and golden, a gentle kiss from the sea itself. Patrick sighed, the sound drifting out like the softest bubble. Sleepy forever. The star dimmed slightly, holding him in its glow. The parade began to move again, slow and endless, carrying Patrick with it. He floated on, glowing faintly, a quiet figure among the lanterns. The rhythm of the jellyfish was his rhythm now, and their dreamlike silence was his silence. Together they drifted through the deep waters, weaving light into the ocean's darkness. The parade stretched far into the distance, no beginning and no end, just glowing bodies pulsing with a rhythm as old as the sea itself. And in the middle of it, Patrick dreamed, calm, glowing, endless. The jellyfish carried him forward, their light dimming, then brightening again, like the heartbeat of the ocean. And with every pulse, Patrick sank deeper, until even his dreams began to dream. Patrick drifted gently, still wrapped in the rhythm of the jellyfish parade, until the glowing lights began to thin out. The pulsing lanterns floated farther apart, and the golden star that had guided him slowly dimmed, sinking back into the sea's soft silence. Patrick yawned, his voice bubbling into the water like a slow sigh. Ahead, the sea opened into a wide valley, calm and hushed, as though it had been waiting for him all along. The ground sloped down into soft, white sand, and rising from that sand was a vast coral garden, glowing faintly under the moonlit sea. The garden stretched far and wide, its colors muted yet alive. Towers of coral swayed like sleepy trees, their branches soft with flowing fronds. Some glowed with faint blue light, others shimmered with pale pink, and some hummed with a golden glow as though they had captured tiny stars inside their roots. Patrick blinked slowly, his heavy eyes drinking in the colors. Pretty, like candy, but softer, he murmured, tilting his head as he floated closer. The coral moved gently with the tide, breathing with the ocean. Each sway was slow and even, like the rise and fall of a giant chest in slumber. Fish drifted lazily among the branches, their fins moving in slow, drowsy strokes. They peeked out at Patrick with half-shut eyes, as if they too were caught in the dreamy spell of the place. The water here was different, thicker, quieter, as though the sounds of the outside world had been muffled. Patrick could hear only the faint hum of the coral and the rhythm of his own breathing. It felt safe, warm, and impossibly calm. He floated deeper into the garden, brushing his hands lightly over a glowing coral branch. The surface was smooth and warm, humming faintly beneath his touch. It felt like a soft purr, a vibration that spread up through his arm and into his chest. Patrick's eyelids fluttered, the gentle hum lulling him further. "Corals, singing bedtime," he mumbled with a sleepy grin. The coral responded with a brighter pulse of light, as if it had heard him. The glow spread outward through the branch, rippling into the garden, where other corals picked up the hum and carried it along. Soon the entire garden seemed to be alive with a low, soothing vibration, like a choir whispering lullabies to the sea. Patrick's body sank lower until he rested on a soft patch of sand. He sat cross-legged, eyes half closed, watching the coral sway in unison. The humming surrounded him, wrapping him like a blanket. Above him, a school of tiny silver fish circled slowly, their bodies catching the faint glow of the coral. Each turn of their circle mirrored the rhythm of the hum, spinning lazily, as though hypnotized. Patrick tilted his head back, watching them drift, his voice soft. "They're like little twinkle things, swimming stars." The coral garden seemed endless. Towers stretched into the distance, each one glowing, each one swaying. Some formed arches that curved like doorways. Others formed spirals that reached up toward the surface. Between them, small caves glimmered with light, their entrances glowing like lanterns guiding weary travelers. Patrick's curiosity stirred faintly, even in his drowsiness. He waddled forward, peeking into one of the glowing caves. Inside, he saw rows of coral crystals, sharp yet soft with their inner glow. They shimmered in steady pulses like the heartbeat of the earth. Patrick let out a long sigh. So shiny, so sleepy. He didn't step inside. Instead, he lay down at the cave's entrance, resting his head on his arms, just to feel the vibrations more closely. The hum seeped into him, slow and deep, until it felt like his bones were humming too. The coral garden shifted its light as though responding to him. The colors softened, blending together into waves of pastel pink and blue. Patrick smiled faintly in his half-sleep, watching the colors blur and ripple. It felt like watching clouds drift across a lazy sky. He whispered, "It's like the whole ocean's tucking me in." The corals swayed again, their hum growing deeper, more resonant. Even the sand beneath him vibrated gently, like a giant, living pillow. Patrick curled up on his side, hugging his round belly, and let his body sink into the warmth of the garden. Around him, more fish gathered, drifting lazily between the corals. Some nestled into the glowing branches, their fins still, their eyes closed. Even the smallest creatures, shrimp, crabs, tiny snails, moved slower here, their motions heavy with sleep. It was as if the entire garden shared the same dream, a dream Patrick had been invited into. The soft glow, the humming lullaby, the drifting shapes, it all folded together, pulling Patrick deeper. His breath came slow and steady, his chest rising and falling like the swaying coral towers. He could no longer tell if he was awake or dreaming, or if the coral garden was both at once. The sea around him whispered with its endless quiet, and Patrick let himself drift in it fully, his mind blank, his heart calm. The coral garden had welcomed him, and in its glowing stillness, Patrick was home. Patrick lay curled in the sand, his head resting on his folded arms. The glow of the coral bathed him in soft blue and pink, flickering gently like a nightlight. His breaths were slow, heavy, rising and falling in rhythm with the swaying branches above him. The hum of the coral grew deeper, a low vibration that Patrick felt more than heard. It seeped into his bones, tickled his belly, and wrapped around his sleepy mind like a quilt. He giggled quietly at the sensation, though his voice was muffled by drowsiness. Hee hee. Feels like the ocean's purring. The garden seemed to respond. The corals nearest him shimmered brighter, their glow rippling outward. The light flowed across the sand like a tide of color, reaching other coral towers. One by one they joined in, their hums overlapping, blending into a chorus of soft vibrations. Patrick blinked slowly, his eyes half open. "Are you talking to me?" he mumbled. The hum rose and fell, answering in a language without words. Patrick didn't need to understand the meaning. The rhythm alone made sense deep inside him, like the ocean was whispering bedtime secrets only his heart could hear. He pressed his cheek against the sand, letting the vibrations buzz faintly against his skin. The colors around him began to shift more deliberately, pinks swirling into blues, then fading into greens. The light painted shapes in the water, soft waves, spirals, and circles that pulsed in time with the humming. Patrick's eyelids drooped, but he forced them open just a little longer, mesmerized. "Pretty pictures. Sleepy pictures," he sighed. A coral tower beside him swayed lower, as though bending to watch him. Its fronds brushed gently against his arm, releasing a warmer glow. Patrick smiled, eyes fluttering. "Oh, hello, tall coral friend." The hum from that tower grew stronger, vibrating through Patrick's arm and into his chest. He could almost feel words forming inside the rhythm. It wasn't speech, not like SpongeBob's cheerful chatter or Squidward's grumbles. It was older, slower, deeper. The message was simple: rest, breathe, stay. Patrick sighed dreamily. Okay." He wriggled slightly, settling deeper into the sand. The coral seemed pleased. Its glow pulsed in slow, steady waves, and soon other corals joined, sending their hums in reply. The entire garden pulsed together, as though the seabed itself had a heartbeat. Patrick's breathing synced with it, long, slow, and steady. Each inhale matched a glow, each exhale matched a fade. The garden shifted again, showing him another vision. This time, the lights shaped themselves into a drifting wave that flowed overhead, as though a piece of the ocean had been lifted out and painted in glowing lines. The wave curled gracefully, its crest forming a spiral, before dissolving into specks of light that rained softly over Patrick. He stretched his hands upward, the glowing specks landing on his fingers, his cheeks, his round belly. "Sparkly rain," he murmured, smiling faintly. The coral's hum deepened once more, and Patrick felt a strange warmth spreading inside him. Not heat, but comfort. It was the warmth of safety, of being held. He closed his eyes halfway, listening. The hum told him more stories now. He felt them rather than heard them, ancient currents flowing across the sea, tides rising and falling with the pull of the moon, the slow growth of coral branches over countless years. Patrick gasped softly in his half-sleep. "You've been here a long time." The coral's glow pulsed gently as though nodding. Patrick's mind, hazy and calm, tried to picture what that meant. The corals had been swaying here while he napped on his rock, while SpongeBob laughed at the Krusty Krab, while jellyfish floated over fields. They had been here long before him, still and patient, humming to the ocean. His voice softened even further, barely more than a whisper. "You must know all the best dreams." The hum vibrated in agreement, wrapping him tighter. Patrick giggled sleepily. "Will you share some with me?" The coral garden glowed brighter, and for a moment Patrick thought he saw something drift toward him. A faint shape, soft and transparent, like a bubble carrying a dream inside it. The shape hovered above him, glowing faintly with shifting colors. Patrick reached out lazily, his fingers brushing the dream bubble. At his touch, it burst, releasing a cloud of tiny sparks that floated down over him. The spark sank into his skin, and instantly, Patrick's mind filled with soft images. Seashells opening under moonlight, fish curling into nests of sand, seaweeds swaying like hammocks in the tide. Every image was slow, gentle, and endless. Each one lulled him deeper. Patrick sighed, rolling onto his back, staring upward at the glowing towers. "Thank you, Carl's." His words trailed off into silence, his voice fading like a bubble drifting upward. The coral garden pulsed again, steady and sure, as though tucking him in more firmly. The hum was no longer outside him, it was within him, resonating in his chest, guiding each breath and heartbeat. Patrick's eyes fluttered closed again, though not fully. He wanted to see the colors, even if only through heavy lids. The soft glow bathed him in comfort, painting his dreams with light. He felt the coral's message clearly now, steady and kind. "Sleep, dream, you are safe." And Patrick, smiling faintly, obeyed. Patrick lay still, his round body heavy against the sand, while the coral garden pulsed softly around him. The hum was steady now, like a lullaby repeated endlessly. The vibrations had seeped so deeply into him that he couldn't tell if his own heartbeat was his or theirs. Everything seemed to move together, his chest, the glow, the sway of the coral branches. The colors shifted again, this time with more intent. Patrick blinked drowsily, watching the light gather above him. It spread out in wide swirls, blending into soft curtains of blue and gold. Slowly those curtains folded inward, forming an image, a glowing meadow made entirely of coral. Patrick's half-closed eyes widened slightly, enough to take in the scene. In this vision, tiny coral flowers bloomed in clusters, their petals pulsing faintly. The meadow swayed as though touched by an unseen current, and small fish darted between the flowers, each leaving a faint streak of light behind them. Patrick mumbled, "Coral meadow. So squishy looking." His words were thick with drowsiness, but his smile was genuine. The vision shifted. The meadow rippled, transforming into a glowing hill. At its peak, coral towers grew tall, shaped like candles flickering in the sea. Their light was soft, steady, like a row of lanterns on a path. Patrick slowly raised a hand, pointing toward them. "Lantern Carls. They're showing the way." The hum deepened, echoing his thought. The glowing lantern towers swayed together, tilting gently, guiding him forward. Though he didn't move, Patrick felt as though he were being carried along the coral path. His body was still curled on the sand, but his dream self wandered, waddling slowly up the glowing hill. Each step was light, effortless, guided by the rhythm of the coral's hum. When he reached the top of the hill, the vision shifted again. The lantern towers spread apart, revealing a glowing lagoon. The water here sparkled like liquid starlight, and coral branches curved around the edges like protective arms. The lagoon was quiet, still, and impossibly calm. Patrick's voice came out soft, awestruck. "That's the sleepiest pond I've ever seen." The lagoon rippled with faint light, as if answering him. Its glow reflected upward, covering him in gentle waves of color. Patrick yawned, the sound bubbling slowly from his mouth. His dream self knelt beside the lagoon, cupping glowing water into his hands. When he lifted the water, it spilled through his fingers, leaving behind tiny sparks that clung to his skin. They didn't sting, they didn't tickle. They simply melted into him, carrying warmth straight into his chest. Patrick's breathing deepened further, his smile softening. "Tastes like bedtime soup," he muttered, giggling faintly at his own words. The lagoon faded, its glow dissolving into soft ribbons of color. The ribbons twisted upward, forming a new picture, a coral bed, shaped perfectly for Patrick. The bed was wide and soft, its frame made of glowing branches, its surface lined with seaweed quilts that shimmered with faint blue sparkles. Patrick's eyes lit up even in his drowsiness. Oh, sleepy bed. The bed glowed brighter, pulsing with invitation. Without thinking, Patrick's dream self climbed onto it, curling up instantly. The coral bed shifted to match his shape, cradling him gently. The glow beneath him hummed like a soft heartbeat, and Patrick sighed deeply, sinking into its embrace. "Comfy," he whispered, eyes fluttering closed. The coral bed swayed slightly, as if rocking him, while the rest of the garden pulsed in unison. The humming grew softer now, lower, almost imperceptible. It was no longer trying to speak or show him visions. It was simply holding him, like a lullaby that no longer needed words. But even in his near sleep, the visions continued to bloom gently round him. Coral branches formed arches above his head, their glow dripping like liquid stars. Tiny fish arranged themselves into constellations, twinkling softly as they drifted past. The sand beneath him glowed faintly, pulsing like the rise and fall of a blanket being breathed upon. Patrick was in the middle of it all, swaddled by the dreamlike garden. His breath matched its rhythm, his body glowing faintly from the light that had seeped into him. He didn't need to move, didn't need to speak. Everything around him whispered the same truth. Rest, rest, rest. And Patrick, smiling faintly, let himself sink deeper into the coral's dream, safe, calm, endless. Patrick lay in the coral bed, his round body curled gently, his head resting on the shimmering seaweed quilts. The garden glowed softly around him, pulsing in slow waves, each one matching the rhythm of his steady breathing. His eyes fluttered, heavy with sleep, but he kept them open just long enough to watch the last of the visions unfold. Above him, coral branches stretched like arms, forming a glowing canopy. The branches pulsed faintly, releasing tiny sparks of light that floated downward like drifting snow. The sparks landed on Patrick's belly, on his cheeks, on his stubby arms, and melted instantly into warmth. He sighed long and slow, as though the sparks were carrying him even deeper into the garden's embrace. The hum continued, low, steady, resonant. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was the sea itself, the heartbeat of the world beneath the waves. Patrick felt it in his chest, in his arms, even in his dreams. The coral began to sway again, but slower than before, so slow that Patrick could barely see it move. The motion was like the gentle rocking of a cradle, the whole garden leaning back and forth, carrying him with it. His round body shifted slightly, sinking deeper into the coral bed, every muscle letting go. For a moment, Patrick thought he heard whispers in the hum, not voices, but meanings. They brushed against his sleepy mind, clear and kind. You are safe. You are home. You can rest. Patrick smiled faintly, his lips curving in a drowsy grin. Okay, he murmured, the word trailing into silence. The coral bed glowed brighter beneath him, as if pleased. The seaweed quilt shifted, wrapping around his body without him moving a finger. The glowing fibers curled like arms, holding him, rocking him. Patrick nuzzled into it, letting the warmth seep into his skin. The visions above him grew dimmer, but softer too, like fading lanterns in the distance. A spiral of glowing fish circled once more and then dissolved. A wave of colors shimmered overhead and then faded into still water. The coral canopy bent lower, covering him, until all that remained was a gentle glow, enough to light his dreams. Patrick's breaths grew longer, slower. The sound of each inhale echoed faintly in the garden, as though the coral itself had begun to breathe with him. His snores bubbled out gently, but they weren't noisy. They blended with the hum, becoming part of the lullaby. Every so often, the corals pulsed in brighter waves, as though checking on him. Each time, Patrick's glow answered faintly, his body pulsing in sync. It was as if he had become one more branch in the garden, one more sleepy light in the sea's quiet choir. The sand beneath him vibrated gently, like a soft drum beat under the quilt. It carried him deeper into sleep, rocking him without end. Patrick's mind, once scattered and silly, was now completely still, blank as a smooth pebble. He wasn't dreaming of jellyfish or candy or silly adventures. He was simply resting, floating in the coral's endless lullaby. The garden knew he was asleep, but it didn't stop. It continued to glow, to hum, to sway, as though it had promised to watch over him. The branches leaned lower, their tips brushing against his body in protective arcs. The fish nearby stilled completely, curling into the coral's arms as well. Even the smallest creatures, the shrimp, the crabs, the snails, moved no more. They too had joined the garden's sleep. The hum grew softer, lower, fading into something Patrick no longer needed to hear. It sank into silence, not because it was gone, but because it had become part of him. Patrick's round chest rose once, fell once, then settled into the deep rhythm of the sea. His smile lingered faintly, but his eyes were closed fully now, his body heavy, glowing faintly with the coral's light. And so Patrick slept. The coral garden swayed around him, timeless and patient. It had seen countless tides rise and fall, countless creatures come and go. But now it held one starfish in its embrace, keeping him safe in the quiet. The ocean outside carried on. Currents moved, waves broke far above. But in the garden, time itself slowed. It was a place made only for rest, and Patrick had become part of it. The last sparks of light drifted down, fading into the sand. The hum, the glow, the sway, all of it remained, but softer now, quieter, like the final hush of a bedtime story. And in that hush, Patrick drifted into the deepest sleep, one that had no end, one that belonged to the coral, to the sea, to the dream itself. The coral garden glowed once more, a final, gentle pulse, then dimmed, holding Patrick in its timeless night. Patrick stirred faintly in his sleep, the soft coral bed still holding him in its gentle glow. The garden hummed low and steady, rocking him further into rest. But somewhere beyond the glowing branches, beyond the coral's lullaby, something brighter was waiting. A star. Not the kind that sparkled faintly in the distant ocean sky, barely seen through the watery veil. This one was different. It was closer, warmer, watching. Patrick shifted slightly, his round body glowing faintly as he snored. His dreams had been drifting, slow and aimless, but now they began to pull in a new direction. A light touched him, soft, golden, like a feather brushing his cheek. He mumbled in his sleep and rolled to his side, chasing it. Far above, through the rippling ceiling of the ocean, a single star had begun to shine brighter than all the rest. The night sky above the sea was filled with points of light, but this one glowed as though it had chosen Patrick alone. It flickered once, twice, then began to drift downward. Through the water it fell, its glow shimmering, breaking into ribbons of gold. The ocean welcomed it, wrapping it in waves that slowed its descent, carrying it gently as if the sea itself were helping it find its way. Patrick, though fast asleep, felt the change. The coral bed beneath him grew warmer, the hum shifting tones, adjusting to the new light. His eyelids twitched, and slowly they opened just a crack. Through the shimmering coral canopy, Patrick saw it. The star. It hovered above him, glowing soft and round, pulsing gently like a lantern carried on an invisible current. Its light spilled across the garden, filling every corner with warmth. Coral branches glowed brighter in its presence. Fish stirred faintly before curling back into slumber, and even the smallest grains of sand glittered like tiny jewels. Patrick blinked slowly, his eyes heavy but wide with wonder. "Huh," he whispered, his voice groggy and quiet. "Pretty." The star pulsed once in reply, its glow flickering like a soft heartbeat. Patrick rubbed his eyes with his stubby arms, then yawned, stretching. He didn't feel afraid, not even surprised. In his dreamy state, the star felt like the most natural thing in the world, as though it had been waiting for him all along. "Hello, little star," Patrick murmured, his voice calm and slow. Are you here to tuck me in?" The star glowed brighter for a moment, answering without words. Patrick smiled, his eyelids lowering again, though he tried to keep them open. The light was so soothing, so warm, it felt like it was melting his last bits of wakefulness. He raised one arm lazily toward it, his fingers stretching but never quite reaching. The star floated lower, its light spilling over his hand. The glow sank into him, wrapping around his skin, flowing through his arm and into his chest. Patrick sighed deeply, his whole body softening, sinking further into the coral's embrace. It was as though the star had wrapped him in a second blanket, one made only of light. The coral garden seemed to quiet itself, bowing in respect to the star. Its branches stilled, its hum softened, leaving only Patrick and the glowing companion above him. The fish no longer stirred, even the sand settled, every grain resting. Patrick's eyes half closed again, but he kept watching. "You're really nice," he whispered, his words floating like bubbles, like a nightlight for my dreams. The star pulsed once more, its golden glow flickering gently as if smiling back at him. Patrick's breathing slowed. His eyelids drifted lower, but the glow kept him company, steady and sure. His body felt lighter again, not floating upward this time, but sinking inward, into rest, into safety, into the kind of sleep where even dreams slowed into silence. Still the star lingered, shining over him, its warmth wrapping him in layers of calm. Patrick didn't need to speak anymore. He didn't need to think. He only needed to breathe, and the star breathed with him, glowing brighter with every rise of his chest, dimming gently with every fall. Minutes slipped away, though Patrick had no sense of them anymore. There was no time, only light and warmth. The coral garden dimmed further until its glow was only a background hum, while the star remained, a single lantern of the sea. Patrick's round face softened completely, his mouth parting slightly as he drifted back into sleep. His last thought before surrendering fully was simple, childlike, and sweet. "I think I'll stay here a while." The star flickered, as if in answer, before holding steady. And so the coral garden, the sea, and the star cradled Patrick together, each glow and hum in harmony, each rhythm aligned with his deepening rest. The star hovered above, keeping watch, a quiet guardian for his endless dream. The star lingered above Patrick, steady in its glow, but its warmth began to reach deeper than before. It was no longer just a light shining over him. It was a presence that filled the water, the sand, even the coral. Its golden glow sank into everything, weaving through the quiet garden like threads of silk. Patrick, nestled in his coral bed, breathed slowly, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the light. Each inhale drew the glow closer, filling his body. Each exhale released bubbles that shimmered and dissolved into the star's radiance. He was no longer just lying beneath it. He was a part of it. With every breath, Patrick's awareness drifted further inward. The star wasn't only above him anymore, it was within him. Its warmth curled in his chest, glowing faintly beneath his skin, making him look as if he were lit from the inside out. His round body pulsed faintly with golden light, soft and sleepy. The coral garden, sensing this shift, grew quieter still. The hum faded almost to silence, leaving Patrick alone with the star. The garden's branches pulled back slightly, as though giving space for this private communion. Patrick mumbled softly, half asleep. "It's like you're tucking me in from the inside." His voice was faint, dreamy, nearly lost in the stillness. The star pulsed once more, and Patrick felt its warmth swirl through him like a tide, lifting his thoughts into something brighter. He didn't resist, and he couldn't. His body was heavy, but his mind floated. The light expanded in his vision, filling everything until the coral, the sand, even the sea itself seemed to dissolve. He no longer felt the weight of the water pressing around him. He no longer felt the sand beneath his back. All that remained was golden glow. Patrick was floating again, but this time not in water. He floated in light. The glow cradled him like invisible arms holding him aloft in an endless sea of brightness. There was no up or down, no near or far. Just Patrick drifting slowly, eyes half-lidded, surrounded by warmth. He giggled faintly, though his voice was slow and muffled. "Huh. Feels like I'm inside a marshmallow." His arms wiggled a little, but there was nothing to push against, nothing to hold. Just softness everywhere. The star pulsed again, brighter now, and Patrick felt a gentle tug, not pulling him away, not moving him outward, but drawing him deeper inside. It was like the star was inviting him further into itself, into a dream within a dream. Patrick didn't resist. His round body curled slightly, arms resting against his belly, as though preparing for another layer of rest. His eyes fluttered shut, opening only briefly to see the golden waves shimmering around him. With each passing moment, the glow grew richer. It wasn't only light anymore. It carried textures, shapes, and faint colors. Golden threads wove through the brightness like rippling ribbons. Soft waves of warmth moved past him, rocking him gently. He realized the glow itself had become another sea, one made of light instead of water. Patrick floated there, carried by invisible currents. His breathing matched the gentle rhythm of the golden tide, in and out, endlessly calm. Every so often, the light would swell, forming faint images in the brightness, shapes that drifted like dream clouds. Patrick thought he saw a jellyfish, glowing even brighter than the ones in the parade, then a seashell, round and smooth, humming without sound, then faintly, his own rock from Bikini Bottom, shining like a beacon in the light sea. Patrick's sleepy mind recognized them, but he didn't chase them. He only watched, letting them pass by like drifting clouds. The light carried them onward, dissolving them into brightness again. The star pulsed gently, wrapping him tighter. Patrick felt its warmth sink deeper, brushing against thoughts he didn't even know he had. His silly worries, tiny things he had forgotten about, like whether he had eaten enough ice cream that day, or whether his rock looked tidy, floated up like bubbles, then popped, gone instantly in the glow. What remained was peace. Patrick let out a soft snore, his mouth hanging open slightly as he drifted further into the star's sea. He didn't notice the difference anymore between his body and the light. His arms, his legs, his round belly, all of it seemed to blend, his edges dissolving until he was only a soft glow among the star's glow. If Patrick had words left in him, they might have been, "I'm the star now, too." But he didn't need to speak. The star already knew. It pulsed one final time, strong and steady, then quieted, holding Patrick inside its endless warmth. There was no separation now. The star and Patrick breathed together, dreamed together. One glow, one calm, one endless dream. And so he floated, timeless, weightless, safe. The golden glow around Patrick shifted. It was no longer just brightness, no longer just warmth. Slowly it began to shape itself into pictures, drifting and shimmering as though the star was painting with light. Patrick, nestled in the heart of the glow, blinked drowsily. He was so deeply asleep that even opening his eyes felt like a dream. But when he looked, he saw the star's visions unfolding before him, soft glowing shapes that hovered and drifted in the endless sea of light. The first vision was simple, a starfish, round and pink, just like him. It floated in front of him, glowing faintly, spinning slowly. Patrick squinted, then let out a sleepy giggle. "Yeah, that's me." The glowing starfish tilted as if nodding back at him. Then it dissolved into sparkles, fading into the glow. Another shape formed. This time, it was an ice cream cone, tall and wobbly, with scoops stacked higher than Patrick's head. The ice cream shimmered with golden light, the scoops dripping sparkles instead of sprinkles. Patrick licked his lips automatically, his tongue poking out in his sleep. He mumbled softly, "Star-flavored ice cream." The cone twirled once, then melted into golden mist, leaving only sweetness in the air. Patrick sighed happily and curled deeper into himself, his body glowing faintly in time with the star's rhythm. The visions continued, flowing one after another, soft and silly like bubbles rising to the surface. He saw jellyfish again, glowing brighter than before, drifting through the golden sea in slow parades. Their tentacles shimmered like ribbons of starlight, swaying gently. Patrick reached out a hand, brushing at the glow, though he didn't really touch it. The jellyfish drifted past, surrounding him briefly, then dissolved into trails of glitter. Next came his rock, his ordinary, simple rock, but now it glowed softly, just like the coral bed had. He saw himself sitting on it, legs crossed, eyes closed, snoring happily. He giggled sleepily again. "That's me, but sleepier." The image bobbed, then folded into itself, vanishing. The visions grew grander, but still gentle. A glowing seahorse drifted past, pulling a tiny chariot made of light. Patrick waved lazily at it, and the seahorse flicked its tail, sprinkling glittery bubbles that floated into Patrick's chest. He inhaled deeply, the bubbles sinking into him like extra warmth. Then came a school of glowing fish, their bodies arranged in perfect patterns. They swam together in the shape of a star, then shifted, becoming a heart, then drifted apart again, vanishing into the glow. Patrick's breathing slowed even more, but his sleepy smile stayed wide. Each vision seemed sillier, softer, kinder than the last. He didn't need to chase them, didn't need to hold on. They came to him gently, stayed only as long as they were meant to, then drifted away. The star pulsed faintly, guiding the flow of images. It was as though the star knew Patrick's dreams better than Patrick himself. It brought him what comforted him most: simple joys, soft silliness, warm memories. Patrick's eyelids fluttered shut again, though his mind kept floating in the visions. He felt the images pass through him, leaving traces of calm behind. A glowing Krabby Patty appeared next, steaming with golden light. Patrick's belly rumbled faintly in his sleep. He reached out, clutching at the glow, but the patty dissolved before his hand closed. Instead of disappointment, he only sighed in contentment, as though he had already tasted it in his dream. Another vision took shape. SpongeBob's pineapple house, glowing faintly, its windows shimmering like tiny lanterns. A warm golden light spilled from the door, and Patrick thought he heard a faint laugh from inside. The sound wasn't loud, wasn't sharp. It was soft, slow, stretched into a lullaby of friendship. Patrick mumbled, "SpongeBob," before drifting further. The stars shifted again, showing constellations now. Shapes formed overhead in the glow, like a night sky within the star itself. Patrick saw outlines of things he loved: jellyfish, ice cream cones, smiling faces, even his own simple rock. They connected like dots in a giant glowing puzzle, then unraveled into sparks. The constellations faded, replaced by softer waves of light that swirled around Patrick, rocking him gently. His breathing matched their rhythm perfectly now, slow and steady like the tide itself. He was no longer watching the visions. They were flowing into him, becoming part of his dreams, settling into the deepest layers of his mind. Each silly image, each glowing shape, folded itself into his rest, until Patrick was wrapped in them completely. The star pulsed once more, bright and steady, as though sealing the visions in place. Patrick sighed, the glow around his body softening even further. His edges blurred into the golden sea, his form almost indistinguishable from the light. There was no need for words anymore, no need for thought. The star carried everything for him now, his joy, his silliness, his rest. Patrick was only a glow among glows, a dream within a dream, floating endlessly inside the star's embrace. The star's glow slowed into long, steady pulses, as if it, too, had settled into the rhythm of sleep. Patrick's round body was almost invisible now, his outline blurred by the golden waves. He was no longer simply being cradled by the light. He had become part of it. Inside the star's glow, everything was calm. The visions had faded, the constellations dissolved, and leaving only quiet radiance. Patrick floated there, his breath so soft that even the light seemed to lean closer to follow them. Each inhale made the glow brighten faintly. Each exhale let it dim. The rhythm continued, endless, timeless, as though Patrick and the star were sharing the same slow heartbeat. The coral garden below was still, its branches bent slightly, bowing toward the light that filled their space. The fish, the sand, the smallest shells, all remained quiet, as if the entire ocean had agreed to sleep beside Patrick. The star shimmered faintly as though satisfied. Its task was nearly complete. Patrick shifted once, murmuring in his sleep. His stubby arms curled closer to his belly, his mouth opened slightly in a gentle snore. A trail of bubbles floated upward, catching the light and bursting softly. His body glowed faintly, still tied to the star, still pulsing in time. But slowly, the connection softened. The star's glow began to dim, not sharply, not suddenly, but with the slow care of a guardian stepping back. Its pulses stretched wider apart, its radiance shrinking gently into itself. Patrick no longer needed visions or warmth to hold him. He had sunk past dreams, past even thoughts, into the deepest layer of rest. The golden sea around him thinned, fading back into the coral garden. The branches overhead grew clear again, their tips swaying faintly. The sand returned beneath him, cool and soft. The sea's weight pressed gently once more, familiar and calming. Patrick hardly noticed the change. His body remained heavy, glowing faintly, his breaths long and even. The star lingered above him, still shining but not as bright as before. Its work was done. For one final moment, the star pulsed strongly, casting a warm glow across the garden. Every coral branch lit up. Every grain of sand glittered. Every fish shimmered faintly before curling back into slumber. The entire place glowed, as though honoring the quiet starfish sleeping in their care. Patrick stirred slightly at the glow, whispering half a word in his sleep. "Pretty?" Then he sank again, his voice fading into silence. The star dimmed further, its edges softening until it looked less like a blazing lantern and more like a single, gentle candle in the distance. It hovered there, its light faint but steady, a watchful eye in the quiet ocean night. Patrick's glow pulsed one final time in rhythm with it, then slowed, matching only his breath. The coral hummed faintly again, softer than ever, as though resuming its eternal lullaby. The sound wove itself into Patrick's rest, layering on top of the star's light. The garden cradled him as it had before, protective and endless. Above, the star lingered, not gone, not forgotten, just quieter. Its glow would remain as long as Patrick dreamed, as long as he needed it. And Patrick, lost in the deepest, most peaceful sleep, would never know the difference. The night carried on, slow and unhurried. Waves drifted above the sea, currents shifted faintly in the distance, but none of it reached the coral garden. It was a sanctuary, still and glowing, timeless as sleep itself. Patrick dreamed no more images, no more visions. His mind was blank, soft, endless. His breath, his glow, his being, everything rested. The star dimmed once more, its light nearly gone, until it was only a faint shimmer, a memory of warmth. But even so, its presence lingered, invisible but eternal. It would always remain, a quiet guardian in Patrick's sleep. And so the coral garden returned to silence. The hum steadied, the branches swayed slowly, the sand lay undisturbed. Patrick curled peacefully on his coral bed, wrapped in warmth, bathed in the faint glow that would never leave him. He was safe. He was home. He was asleep. The star, now a tiny spark above, flickered once in farewell, then it held steady, watching without moving, as Patrick's snores faded into the sea's eternal hush. Nothing else was needed. No dreams, no words, no visions, only rest. And so the story of Patrick's dreaming star ended where it began, with one star shining in the quiet, endless night, and one sleepy starfish resting beneath it. Together they slept,